The past 9 years have been a living hell for Bob Lawrence. His physical health has steadily declined since his daughter Renee, a member of the infamous Bali Nine, was arrested for trying to smuggle heroin into Australia. He says the family is now broke after having to fork out around $300,000 on Renee's legal bills.
We've got nothing to fall back on when we retire. I'm 69 this year. Jenny's bloody 9 years younger than me. She hasn't got much work time left in her, and we've still got a massive debt, which we didn't have before this.
Renee will be able to seek parole next year, but the family has been told it could face new legal costs of around $100,000. Bob Lawrence wants the Australian government to foot the bill, saying the federal police should have waited to arrest the Bali Nine when they landed back home, instead of tipping off Indonesian authorities.
The government should step in now and not just Renee, they should help the 9 of them.
But even if parole is granted, Mr Lawrence believes his daughter's ordeal won't end there.
She probably will be in the same sort of shoes as Corby. They've only got to do one thing wrong, because they're going to have to do their parole there. One thing wrong and they're going to be back in.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
The playground is still a hive of activity, but it's not as busy as operators would like. The non-profit Early Education Centre's been part of Raymond Terrace for 26 years, and right now vacancies are at an all-time high. It has 37 spots free and needs to fill 10 immediately.
If we don't get a lot more families enrol their children, then we're going to be in a position where we will probably have to close.
There are 3 preschools in the area within a few hundred metres of each other, but Mrs Bradbury believes there are a number of factors contributing to the problem, and that isn't one of them.
We've had families leave us recently because they've lost their own employment, so they no longer require care. We've had families move out of the area because they're chasing employment.
The centre's director, Belinda Kent, also believes it could just be a short-term problem.
We've done some research and we've found that in 2010 there were less children born, so that means that this year there are not a lot of 4-year-olds around.
In the meantime, they're hoping families on waiting lists outside the area will give the centre a go.
We have long-term staff here. Most of us have been here in excess of 10 years, so we're all highly qualified, and this centre means a lot to us.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
These men share a bond that runs even deeper than mateship.
It's something you never forget, you can't forget.
In 1954, amphibious tanks, troop carriers and ducks set out from the former Camp Shortland on a military training exercise. But unpredicted rough seas caused several vehicles to sink, claiming 3 lives. For survivors, it still feels like yesterday.
While I was trying to find a way out, it rolled over the right way up, and I was able to get across to the driver's seat, stand on that and push myself out. When I battled my way to the surface, the first thing that hit me was another great big wave. They were monstrous waves.
Harry Stewart and John Morrow were in the only tank to complete the scheduled journey.
We went out to, we picked up survivors off a duck. We've had 13 off that. And we went out to sea and sat on the swells out there until it came daybreak so we could see what we were doing.
The men contacted NBN News after discovering there's no commemorative event planned to mark the 60th anniversary of the tragedy. They want to honour their 3 friends who drowned that day and are urging the community to never forget.
You'll never forget as long as you live, like it's, and we just think how lucky we are that we came through it, where others didn't.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
I like to get them together because over the time they lose track of each other. This is a great opportunity when they're ageing.
Feeling the heat in more ways than one. Michael Dobson is getting hands-on experience with the Aussie weather and, to his own surprise, the NRL for the first time in a while.
It's been good, mate. It's been a pretty tough pre-season, obviously training in the hot weather. I haven't been used to it for 5.5 years and I really enjoyed the challenge and it's been great.
The former Super League star will now guide the Knights around the park.
I went over very young and to be back here and obviously get a start straight up, it's a massive honour.
Wayne Bennett yesterday named Dobson to partner Tyrone Roberts in the halves, while returning captain Kurt Gidley will move to hooker.
Really looking forward to having him out there at hooker and steering us around, so yeah, it's going to be great to see him out there in the red and blue again.
After missing the Knights' finals run last season with an ankle injury, Saturday's game against Penrith can't come soon enough for James McManus.
I missed out in the last 2 games where things were really happening for the boys, and I wouldn't mind getting that feeling.
History says the season opener should be a good one. The Knights have won 5 straight against the Panthers, who've spent up big in the off-season.
We haven't concentrated too much on them, we've concentrated more on ourselves. It's a bit hard to get a gauge on trial form.
Whatever happens, the future is looking good for one Knights star, Tamana Tah, who is back training after a knee reconstruction last November. Revolutionary surgery saw a donor tendon grafted onto the bone, saving the NRL veteran's career. Nat Wallace, NBN News. Round 1 didn't go to plan. Novocastrian Motorsport returned home from Adelaide with a few dings and a 13th placing overall.
The car got a bit excited and hit turn 8 wall, which is 220k an hour you're going through there, and didn't really have anywhere to go but straight into the back of him.
Despite that, and an earlier mistake, Aaron Russell was delighted to finish where he did.
We've made a huge jump from last year. Our times were a lot quicker and our race times were very competitive.
It was the first time the 22-year-old got a real feel for the car. The 888 built FG Falcon was formerly his brother Drew's, but there's a new engine and a new support team. The V8 Development Series is also taking on a more professional format, with qualifying and longer races adding to the pressure.
The level of competition stepped up another level this year. I mean, we didn't think that it could get much better, but everyone's just gone another step further.
While there's some work to do ahead of round 2 in Winton, Victoria, Russell is confident he can improve on his 9th place in the series last year.
I think top 5, definitely. I think, like I said, we were there in the last race. It just come back to me making the mistakes, and that won't happen at the next round.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
If there's a jewellery heaven, this is probably what it looks like. More than 20,000 precious items in one room, all collected by owner Helena Bellotti since she was 12. How she chooses them is a process only a woman would understand.
It's a very emotional purchase for me. When I look at something and I get an emotional lift from it and I love it, I just buy it.
A year ago, she decided her passion was too good not to share with others, prompting her to open her business, Exquisite Jewels for Hire. They can be borrowed on a weekly basis, and Helena's eye for detail is all part of the service.
I love the fact that I can put pieces on people and it turns their feelings of themselves around. So they'll go to an event or even just day to day where they'll wear pieces and they'll get comments and then they'll come back with their confidence levels just increased tenfold.
There are pieces from as far back as the 1800s, highly collectible designer items, diamonds, and even a few items good enough for royalty.
Princess Di used to wear their stuff when she wasn't wearing the crown jewels. They're very exclusive. They only have one store in London. You can only pay cash. They don't really post internationally.
Perhaps the best thing about the collection is that it allows any woman to add a little glamour to her life for an affordable price, even me.
I have a little saying. I think if all the world leaders out there gave out more jewellery, there'd be less war in the world. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to achieve that one. But if I can spread the joy and the love with accessories and jewellery, then that's my goal.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
It's 3.5 years since property giant GPT pulled the plug on its $600 million CBD overhaul. Now, this new concept plan, created by the same developer and Urban Growth New South Wales, is on the table. It features 3 residential towers, one rising to match the height of Christchurch Cathedral, plus 20,000 square metres of retail space, along with restaurants, a cinema and gym.
The significant difference here is they've moved away from what was a full-on retail commercial offering to now offer a residential outcome, about a 50% residential outcome.
There is some high rise in there. It's going to bring people back in. It's going to rejuvenate the city that we've been speaking about for a long, long time.
But Tony Mangione is among the many current apartment dwellers livid and ready to fight.
We don't stop progress, but we don't want ugliness.
He could soon be looking onto a 19-storey residential tower on the old DJ's car park site and a 15-storey tower on Wolfe Street directly opposite.
Our building was restricted to 5 and we had to reduce it. Silk House is only 5, so why should they have 15 and 19 storeys?
The plan also includes 14 storeys on this site opposite the Newcastle Club, which would obstruct its harbour views. The area currently has a height limit of 8 storeys, but new guidelines released by the Planning Department yesterday allow for up to 19.
I think the bulk of people will be saying, well, this is fantastic, because finally there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
In order to generate such enormous numbers, they've done things like estimate the benefits to the hunter between now and 2083. They're talking about benefits over 70 years.
It's been a long journey to get to this point, but after a 3.5-year build, including rain delays last year, in just 2 weeks the Hunter Expressway will open to traffic. The 40-kilometre dual carriageway stretches from the M1 near Southampton to north of Branxton and is expected to cut travel times by up to 28 minutes.
For Maitland, it's going to take a massive amount of traffic. We expect about 20% of traffic on the New England Highway onto the Hunter Expressway.
Following an official government dedication on Friday, March 21, the road will formally open to traffic on the Saturday afternoon. But earlier on Saturday morning, locals will have the opportunity to try out the $1.7 billion link.
The community will be able to get out and walk or ride on the Hunter Expressway.
For bypassed communities like Branxton, only time will tell what impact the road has. Business owners are optimistic it will change the small community for the better.
I think there will be a little bit of impact, but not enough that will control it, and I think it will be fine.
It opens us up to a whole lot of new patrons from Newcastle region, and it also opens up the main street for a lot of more community-based events.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
Unfortunately, there's been waiting lists, particularly for radiotherapy in the Hunter, for 20 years or more now, and the opening of this centre means that essentially that waiting time has disappeared.
It almost looked like a scene out of a Hollywood movie as dramatic dark clouds rolled in over Lake Macquarie last night. Warners Bay photographer Nicholas Sim spent an hour creating this time-lapse shot from Valentine. And shutterbugs were out in force, snapping spectacular shots all over the Hunter. But just what created that perfect storm?
Try and think of it like a vacuum cleaner over a really dusty floor, right? And you're just moving that vacuum cleaner at just the right speed to suck up all of the dust. That's what happened with this storm to make that perfect shelf cloud.
Most thunderstorms usually last between 2 and 3 hours, but this one rolled on for much longer.
That shelf cloud, that rolled cloud, made its way across Sydney, the Central Coast, all the way to the Hunter, almost reaching the mid-north coast, which is a little bit rare.
But for all of its bang and bluster, the storm actually delivered very little rain, just an average of 10 to 15 millimetres across the region.
Usually when we get huge downpours or flash flooding, it's usually from a storm that's stalled, that slows right down, but it maintained its speed.
By this morning, the clouds had cleared and a rainbow filled the sky, but we're being told there's more wet weather ahead. Madeline McKell, NBN News.
Finn Baker McCloy is now a happy, healthy boy, but he had a tough start to life. Born 6 weeks early, he spent 3 weeks in the John Hunter Children's Hospital's neonatal intensive care unit. Grandparents Jeff and Tracy noticed the unit was in need of a helping hand and donated $110,000 for new state-of-the-art cardiorespiratory monitors.
They were short of equipment and they did such a marvellous job with this little fellow, and we just thought as a family it was a great idea.
As equipment has evolved, these are really the state-of-the-art monitors that we want nowadays. They tell us more information. They tell us not only what is occurring now, but what has occurred over a previous 12-hour period.
To say thank you and celebrate Finn's first birthday, he was given a very special present.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I started out as a halfback. He might be a little bit smaller than a halfback, but I think he'll wear it with pride.
Many families like the McCloys give back to the hospital after their bundles of joy emerge fighting fit, something those within the unit are forever grateful for.
We can provide the care, we can provide the space, but to get that equipment is just amazing. We want to be the best neonatal intensive care unit in the world. We can do that with the help of a fantastic community, and we say thank you.
Emma Murphy, NBN News.
I think it's brought the lads a little bit closer together, and I think for them it's probably a good thing because they look a lot younger. I'm probably the only one in the crew that actually looks older as a result of it. That's what I'm trying to juggle at the moment, is trying to work out that balance in terms of how many attacking players and what role Cairns could have going into a match against the likes of the Heart.
I guess each of them are special in their own ways. Each one's a different story and a different chapter in my life.
While most his age are busy studying the classics, one will be rewriting history. Griffin Lee is about to temporarily swap the books for the ball.
It feels pretty unreal right now. I think I'm still buzzing.
Lee is the first cricketer from the Hunter ever named in the Australian schoolboys team since its formation a decade ago, and it's not hard to see why. At 14, he wears size 12 shoes. The Year 9 student is 6 feet tall and can bowl so fast he's already played first grade for Toronto.
I just played my debut the other day against Merewether and took 2 for against them.
And he's not bad with the bat either. While classmates have known about Griffin's ability for some time, Australian selectors are now also taking notice of the all-rounder whose bowling idol is Glenn McGrath.
Scary. Yeah, he's sharp. Yeah, very intimidating.
Lee will be trying to scare some of the world's best juniors when he takes on Sri Lanka and the West Indies in May. His proud parents already have the bags packed.
I did shed a tear though in the audience, watching him standing up there as the first boy selected.
Obviously, I'm going to have some nerves going in there, bowling the first ball of a different country. Obviously, want to get some Sri Lankans out because they're pretty mean with the bat.
The boy from Western Lake Macquarie hopes it's the start of a path that'll lead all the way to a baggy green.
Obviously, we're in the baggy green playing for Australia. Playing at SCG, it's home ground. Definitely can't wait for that if it comes, yeah.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
They're the lifeblood of Hunter Street Mall, and they say the success of mall businesses weighs on the future of a city centre redevelopment and light rail.
I think the best option for sure is to come down Hunter Street and back up Scott Street. Basically, we need to have less vehicles in here, more bikeways, walkways, and get people to where the businesses are.
There's 3 options on the table, and they'll be open for public discussion, with a series of meetings being held in Newcastle and Maitland from tomorrow. The Property Council wants the line to bring passengers directly to businesses.
Certainly our preferred option was the one that enters Hunter Street down towards the Wickham interchange.
But I don't want to predicate the outcome, and we are clearly waiting for the input from the community as well as business before we formulate a plan.
Meanwhile, following the release of GPT and urban growth plans to build 3 residential high-rise properties, Tim Owens says it's a positive outcome.
One of the concerns of the community was the sight line to the cathedral. Well, I think 32 was the number of sight lines that were taken as part of this process, and you can't always please everybody, I understand that.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
I pronounce you Chancellor of the University of Newcastle.
Celebrating the achievements of women past, present and future. And despite the day's title, it wasn't just for the fairer sex.
We've always had a goal to have at least 30% men. We've never hit that target, and I don't know the exact numbers, but we must have been close this year. And it is very deliberate because whilst it's a celebration of women, diversity is actually about all of us.
This year's theme is all about inspiring change while continuing a push for equality.
Locally, we wanted to create a conversation about what's possible and making change happen.
One woman who's done her fair share to inspire is author and advocate for women's rights, Helen Cummings. The daughter of Newcastle and Australia's first female Lord Mayor and mother of Hollywood actress Sarah Winter, Helen's story is a remarkable one. At the age of 26, she escaped her violent husband, who 8 years later murdered his second wife. And in 2011, she released a powerful memoir.
It's a happy story as well. There's a lot of hope in it, but a lot of criticism as well about the state of family law.
This morning, she was announced as Newcastle's Woman of the Year.
I live in the most amazing city in the world. There is no doubt about that. Anyway, I just feel privileged at my age to have been given this. I'm still in shock.
Christy Reading, NBN News.
For the seniors of Maitland, ballroom dancing has been a highlight of their weekly routine for more than 40 years. But according to Archie Brown, the joy is all his.
It gives me great pleasure to look around the dancing mob and say, oh, that's good. They learned to do that and I helped them.
While there have been some changes to his lessons that he's still getting used to, on the floor, his knowledge of dancing genres is endless. His desire to teach is something that came naturally.
And every dance that I learned, I then taught others, and that got me into the teaching mode.
Next week is Seniors Week, celebrating a healthy and active lifestyle for those over 60 in their local communities. According to his students, Archie is the perfect example.
Sensational. The time and effort he puts into helping people.
Look, I didn't know one foot from the other till I saw Archie.
Although his passion for dance isn't waning, there is one extra thing that keeps Archie turning up to class each week.
Probably the lovely ladies.
Samuel Jordan, NBN News.
"24 hours before the opening game, most of the hard work has already been done. To prepare for season 2014, the Knights have completed 13 weeks of training 6 days a week, yielding some important results. Skipper Kurt Gidley has added 5 kilos as he begins his new life at hooker.
Kurt's background is pretty good in the fitness, so we haven't had to chase that too much. So to be able to put a bit of bulk around his shoulders and in the upper body has been perfect.
Joey Leilua lost 7 kilos. Corbin Sims emerged as the fastest forward, while a change of attitude helped Dane Gagai have his best pre-season to date.
He had that bit of time away in the States that we organised for him at the end of last year, and he opened his eyes to some of the things he can do and some of the things that he needs to take that next step.
Jared Mullen topped the athletics ratings for the club, only to suffer a hamstring injury in the Auckland Nines. Mullen is hoping to be back in 8 weeks. The conservative estimate is 12.
It was just one of those things I think we learn along the way, but as we said, we've looked back in all our procedures, all the things we've done, and we can't really pick it and wouldn't really have predicted it, so it's just one of those things that happens, unfortunately.
Despite concerns about his knee, Jeremy Smith says he will line up against the Panthers.
I gave it a good test out this morning and she's good to go. I was a little bit sore when it first happened, but the staff here have been great and they've got me back on track.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Their teams are sitting outside the top 6, but David Williams and Adam Taggart are 2 of the reasons why the Heart and Jets are still in finals contention. Currently on 10 goals apiece, they lead the race for the Golden Boot.
It would be a lie if I said I didn't want it. Of course I want it, but at the same time, if you concentrate on the team and the 3 points, the goals will come.
Taggart believes his combination with Joel Griffiths and Emile Heskey up front will only get better.
It confuses defences. It's hard to play against. We had a pretty ruthless attitude in terms of how we were going to attack, and we put it on the park really well.
Defender Q Yelins found the net against Western Sydney, but his focus is on breaking the Hearts' attack.
I see some weak points, and this is where we have to strike tomorrow. I think in transition, they leave a lot of space in the midfield.
That midfield contains one of the most intimidating figures in the A-League. The Dutchman grew up in the same neighbourhood in Rotterdam.
And, he's a good player. Looking forward to meet him tomorrow again. Only tomorrow I want the 3 points.
Yalin says Engelaar can be contained despite his size and great technique.
If you're fast, he's not that fast anymore. If you're fast and you're on top of him all the time, he won't like that.
Meanwhile, the Jets defender believes he'll finalise a new deal with Newcastle as early as next week. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
We can't constantly brag about the port, then sell it, and then not provide access for people on the city side to ships coming into the port.
We've come a long way since the days of male-dominated heavy industry on Newcastle Harbour. Women are now taking central roles in the shipping industry, and today that was celebrated.
You've got to understand the significance of what those iron boats were about. They carted the products around Australia and internationally, so they played a very, very significant role within the manufacturing in this country.
While the tribute commemorates those involved in the transport of iron and steel, this year the event took a special look at the pioneering role of women in the industry.
A few women have come up to me since then and said thank you for speaking, and that they're going away to sea now, and hopefully I helped to make them able to do that.
Today, women spoke publicly about their hurdles and triumphs in shipping.
It's just a wonderful, fabulous career to sail the seas, get paid, work really hard, and the comradeship is just amazing.
While the landscape may have drastically changed over the past 50 years, for those here today, memories of a bustling harbour and thriving steelworks are vivid.
They used to take the coal from here, so you can see that a major industry. So there was shipbuilding, there was the dockyard related to, the wharfies related to, the port authorities related to, and all those facilities are going and gone.
Georgina Smythe, NBN News.
It hadn't even hit midday, but the beer was already flowing, many finding it hard to resist an award-winning brew. The Maitland Taste Festival celebrates the Hunter's finest food, wine and music, and in its 5th year, its popularity has skyrocketed.
We've got about 60 exhibitors over the weekend. We've actually had to close it off. We've got as many as we can take, so it's really hard to get a spot in here.
Whether you're after a cultural experience, something to please even the youngest of foodies, or trying to satisfy that sweet tooth, you don't need to look far.
And if you love cupcakes, this is the one for you. Topped with pizzas of crunchy, it's one that you really can't resist.
For those wanting to learn how to cook up a storm, the professionals were on hand to show how it's done. There's also a touch of old-fashioned glamour to this year's event, with Morty Mac's travelling tea house rolling into town.
How's the high tea been?
It's beautiful. Having a lovely time. Yeah, no, this is great. And look, underneath these trees, it goes to, on the river. It's such a lovely atmosphere. Yeah, we're loving it.
The festival attracts thousands to the Heritage Mall, and that can only mean good news for store owners.
It does a lot for the businesses around here, so it's pretty special, all these events, and we try to come to as many as we can.
The festival continues tomorrow. Emma Murphy, NBN News.
He's a 3-time world champion, and he's the teenager with an enormous amount of talent. It's a collaboration which could very well send 15-year-old Max Croker to the big time.
Jason saw me race one time, and I guess he got interested in my riding style and ability to ride. We were out here not too long ago, and he gave me a couple of rides on his 2 GP bikes, and that was an awesome experience to ride something as good as his equipment.
Of course, he's referring to Jason Crump, an inspiration for young speedway racers around the country. But Max doesn't only ride speedway, he also competes on the road and dirt. It's that talent which has impressed Crump and fellow motorcycle giant Paul Kaslik, who today passed on their expertise to Max and a host of other potential stars at the Curry Speedway.
For a young boy of 15 years of age, he's got an unbelievable amount of talent, and the biggest thing Max needs to do is to decide which discipline he wants to race in, because I'm sure that whichever way he decides to go, that he can reach the top in that.
That decision won't be made until the end of the year. For now, Max will juggle school with preparations for the Australian GP at Phillip Island and the 250cc World Championships in Italy. Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
She came around the Heads to a pleasant surprise. Hundreds had lined the foreshore to welcome somewhat of a celebrity. Celebrity Solstice by name, but now also at 317 metres, the longest ship ever to enter Newcastle Harbour. The previous record set in 1986.
To see people all the way along at 7:30 in the morning, just to see us coming in, you know.
Very nice.
Very special.
The red carpet rolled out for 2,850 passengers from all over the world.
We are from Belgium.
We're from
England.
the UK. We know very little except that I used to live in Newcastle in England.
As they checked out the city, we checked out the ship. As you'd expect, there were all the comforts of a modern-day luxury cruiser. Impressive, no doubt, but the captain was more impressed with his welcome to the city.
It was more like a celebration this morning than just calling in a port.
Have you had a reaction like that before?
No.
Wow.
No, to be honest, no.
But with 28 years' experience, he did fire a shot at the location of the berth.
Maybe some piers by the closer to the city would be nice too.
Passengers were bussed from Carrington. P&O has already said it won't be back unless there's a dedicated cruise ship terminal on the Newcastle side, and visitors to our waters have decreased this season.
There probably are in the future opportunities maybe on the city side, but then they're not there. This berth is here already.
With the sale of Newcastle Port closer, it remains to be seen if the state government will put pressure on the buyer to build a new terminal. Nats Wallace, NBN News.
We're looking at extending the runway, sealing an extra 300 metres, which will give access to larger planes.
The Jets and Heart showed solidarity raising money for breast cancer research on Pink Day for BK. Ben Kennedy's mum is battling the disease. She had plenty of support at Hunter Stadium. On the pitch, both sides had chances in the first half, but 0-0 was how it stayed. The visitors were unlucky shortly after the restart. An advertising deal meant Adam Taggart couldn't shave his head. His teammates were happy he showed support for their cause. Losing his hair and famous beard didn't hurt Josh Berlante's form. The Jets' second leading scorer then almost added to his tally. Newcastle had the best opportunities in the final 20. Taggart should have had a second. Ruben Zadkovic received a big rap for his tireless effort, but the post-match talk was all about Taggart.
He has to be a bowler for Brazil. He's got a... Personally, I would take that type of player just to give him the experience because he's going to be around in the national setup for some time.
We can fix the things up that happened today and we get a bit more luck, but I just thought they stayed at it tremendously well and they didn't deserve to get beaten by the 30-odd points.
Not usually one to shy away from the spotlight, a different, more reserved Willie Mason came to Newcastle Court today to face the music. Caught drink driving the morning after a big night. The NRL star admitted to having about 20 drinks during Australia Day celebrations, even posting a picture on Instagram. It was 7 o'clock the next morning when he got behind the wheel to go to training. He thought he'd be okay to drive, but was wrong. The 33-year-old P-plater recorded a blood alcohol level of 0.09. The magistrate today acknowledged Mason's remorse and his recent community work before handing him a $900 fine and a 6-month ban from driving.
I respect the court's judgment and I accept everything that I've gotten there.
The Newcastle Knights say they're taking this matter very seriously, and now that the court process is finalised, they'll review it internally in accordance with their code of conduct. Mason is no stranger to controversy. Shunned by the NRL after a string of off-field incidents, he was recruited by the Knights in 2012 on the promise he was a changed man. Today, his lawyer maintained he's a man who is maturing and working to make himself a valuable member of the community.
And I'll be doing my best, for the next year or two to educate all these young kids and keep doing the work that I've been doing off the footy field anyway.
Kate Haberfield, NBN News.
It's the first time in 3 years the police commissioner has come to the Hunter.
It's fantastic just to be here to talk to the police upstairs, to get a chance to talk to the commander, get a feel for what's happening.
Or what wasn't happening. In the past, we've been told of police cars being parked out the front of Port Stephens Command headquarters with not enough officers to drive them, and that those inside the Raymond Terrace station were doing overtime for free because there was no one else to police the area. This show of force was also one of reassurance.
I had your local association member thanking us that we actually had put 5 extra police into this area.
Those officers followed a high-level meeting at the Police Association and the threat of industrial action last November.
Relief. It's been 10 years in the making.
We've made a broken system work. Our blokes have gone above and beyond, sometimes working overtime, a lot of the time working overtime without being paid just to serve our community.
So how bad, to your knowledge, was the situation here?
Well, let me tell you, I don't know that it was the high-level meeting that got the numbers. I think it was something that the Minister had been talking to me about for quite some time.
The police union has described the initial addition of 5 new experienced police officers as life-changing, but it wants assurances an additional 10 will arrive.
There are more coming, and when you get that sort of a commitment from a commissioner, you know it's going to happen.
They won't come until June 2015, with the Commissioner admitting today the state placed a freeze on recruitment numbers.
We had too many people that wanted to join us. We did have to close the books for a while, and we did that for a bit longer than we expected.
Was that freeze as a result of the state government saying it had no money to...
No, absolutely not. No. They were growing.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
He's the former bad boy of Aussie rock. These days, he's not so much angry as fired up.
Do I think I can make a change? Yes. Do I think I can represent the people properly? Yes.
And already sounding like a politician.
If I feel genuinely that the people of Cessnock would accept me as a Nationals candidate to represent them, should we win the seat in Parliament, I'll put my hand up.
So it sort of sounds like a yes.
It's a politician's way of saying not yes, but not no.
Angry, real name Gary Anderson, has been visiting Cessnock for months now, getting to know the place and people, and says he's been encouraged by the response. On Thursday night, he'll headline a concert at the city's Performing Arts Centre to raise money for the art gallery.
First and foremost, I'm an Australian. I'm worried about our future. I'm worried about keeping our cultural identity. I'm very, very worried about economic stability and sustainability.
Whether or not he challenges Labor's Clayton Barr remains to be seen, but the Sydney-based rock star says he's ready for change.
It would mean obviously a move to...
Absolutely.
How do you feel about that?
Absolutely. Who wouldn't want to live in that area?
Pre-selection will happen in June.
The cables were laid and it was supposedly nearly ready to use, but now Labor says high-speed broadband isn't even on the map.
Unfortunately, Newcastle is one of the biggest victims of Tony Abbott's decision to pull the plug on the NBN.
Newcastle will be part of the have-nots.
And the ALP will not hesitate in reminding everyone what it promised to deliver and what's likely to happen now, according to its map of broadband coverage under the coalition.
Newcastle knows that they're not going to get the first-class national broadband network. They're going to get the second-class network, but they still don't know when.
The Abbott government is scaling back the national broadband network. Some areas will still get it. Labor says Newcastle will get a slower version.
About 24% will get fibre to the premises. About 25% will get fibre to a node and then copper all the way to the house or the business.
But Liberal MP for Patterson Bob Baldwin says the cost and bad planning by Labor is the reason there's no high-speed broadband.
The NBN's now effectively dead. It's not what the Liberals promised at the last election, and Newcastle is going to be put at a disadvantage because of these changes.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Those kind of things happen in professional football, and everyone's been around long enough to know that they'll get over it and move on. And, I don't have a problem with it at all.
Early on, the mood at Jets training was understandably light on the back of a weekend win. The push and shove between Regan and Birighitti seemed to come from nowhere. Coaching staff and club officials say both players have agreed to get back to focusing on the task at hand.
Just a little bit of competitive nature, but you know, it's something that you want to have in a squad, but I think you need to make sure you do it in the right way, and I think the way that that one unfolded was probably not something that we're particularly happy with, but it's done.
The Jets are now hoping to get back to beating the Mariners in Gosford for the first time in 6 years. Following his man of the match effort against the Heart, Ruben Zadkovic is keen to once again lead by example.
Last time we played them there, it was like Murphy's Law. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong, and you know, they were fantastic that night and we were really poor. So, you know, we'll be looking to rectify that.
Striker Joel Griffiths missed today's session and is racing to be fit for Saturday's clash.
He's just gone to have a couple of scans on his rib and just see exactly where the problem's coming from. It's just something that came on late in the warm-up.
He's the defending Commonwealth gold medalist, but up until now, Ben Harradine has struggled to rediscover the form that put him on top of the podium in India. His latest effort of 4 A qualifiers at one meet is certain to throw fear into his rivals, just 4 months out from Glasgow. Still on athletics, and it was a great weekend for the hunter at the Port Macquarie Running Festival. Newcastle's Vlad Shatrov won the half marathon in record time.
I feel good. It was hard. That last 7Ks was tough. Today I went out pretty hard, but very, very happy with the time that I got, and the course was great.
Mount Hutton's Kirsten Malloy was the first female over the line.
I'm actually training really hard at the moment. This was a good head out, and I did want to have a good, close to a PB today, which I'm fairly close to it, so I'm happy with that.
Further south, and Redhead's Stuart McLaughlin claimed an impressive win in the Open Men's Board at the New South Wales Surf Lifesaving Championships on the Central Coast. The defending national champion admitted it's been a long time between drinks at state level.
Pretty unlucky. I've gone 1-1, 2-7, 3-2, and I'm back in one. It's been a lot of waves. People have caught on me over the years, and I'm just happy to get one in front.